The whole world wants to live in Australia. I think anybody that's made wealth in this country has been directly linked to property. So people that are in the property game, I know you are, but there's lots of other people. I think property is a surefire thing. Banks lend to property people. Unfortunately, nobody ever teaches you strategy when you're setting up a private business. You know, it is not taught at school. It's not taught at university. It's not taught in MBA programs. But in a Coraggio board, it is the first thing that gets talked about. 20% of those 300,000, which is nearly 60,000 businesses, are owned by people 60 and over, the baby boomers. In other words, in the next 10 years, those 60,000 businesses, they're going to have to do something with. They're either going to keep them, bring their families into it to run them, like their children, sell them, or hopefully not, turn the lights off. If you're going to dream, then dream big. You know, like, don't be scared to have a go. Don't be scared to have a big go. If you never go, you never know.
So today we've got a privilege of sitting down with Richard to pick his brain about the current business economy in Australia and to talk more about what Coraggio has to offer to entrepreneurs across Australia. So Richard, thank you for your time today.
William, thanks for the invitation. It's certainly nice to be here. Coraggio is a fabulous product. You know, it was started in December 2015, so it's well over, actually 2010, my apologies actually, so it's well over 15 years old. When I was your age, William, I didn't know a thing, it was called peer-to-peer advisory. I didn't even know what that was, and I didn't hear of Coraggio until I was 54, and as I often say to all our members, I wish I heard about it when I was 23. And, you know, peer-to-peer advisory is fascinating. It's, you know, all about private owners coming together and sharing their experiences with other private owners, and which is something I wished I'd known about when I was 23, when I was first starting a private business. Because nobody ever teaches you to start a private business, grow a private business, scale a private business. They just assume we know all the answers, you know, that's why we've done it, or do it. So yes, Coraggio was created by 10 shareholders back in 2010. And since then, obviously it was started in Sydney originally, and then grew to Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast. And in 2026, we're going to Western Sydney, which we're all excited about. But yeah, it's a full month, it's a full day, once a month, 12 times a year, where private owners come together in the safety of a chairperson that facilitates the day. There's always an accountant and lawyer in every board, which often goes into the numbers and the legal side of business, which is great to have. And yeah, to answer your question, I think our smallest business is a couple of $100,000 run by a 21-year-old that turns up on his skateboard. And I think our oldest member is about 81 and turns over, I think, about $900 million. And over the 15 years, I think Coraggio has worked with thousands of Australian businesses. But the thing that we're most proud of is that Coraggio is an Australian product. And often, you know, we're hearing right now in Australia that, you know, let's back Australian businesses. You know, the banks are getting behind us, the government's getting behind us. And I think peer-to-peer advisory and being an Australian product is a wonderful thing. And, you know, as I often say, you can't put 12 business owners together for a full day a month and watch businesses go backwards. So yes, lovely to be here.
Yeah, well, on that note, Richard, I'm curious to see, in your mind, the many years that you've been helping businesses grow, and particularly in the last decade in Coraggio, what will be the most standout business that has benefited from Coraggio?
It's really unique. Australia is, you know, there are well over 2 million businesses in Australia in private business. You know, Australian people are great entrepreneurs. You know, we have this great can-do attitude. We have this great resilience. We have a great work ethic. You know, Australia's only a very young country. A lot of people that, you know, immigrated to Australia came with these dreams, you know, to build a better life for their children. And, you know, lots of our members have families. Some have children, some have grandchildren. And, you know, it's having a private business around that is a wonderful thing. And seeing the diversification, you know, we have people doing so many different things, whether, as you said, whether it be technology, whether it be real estate. You know, real estate, Australians have a wonderful fondness of real estate because I think it spells safety, it spells security. So yes, we are very enthusiastic about property in this country. Manufacturing, we've got quite a number of manufacturing businesses in Victoria, but we're also got agricultural businesses. Members that travel in from country, New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland to be part of our organisation, which is wonderful. And as we often say, construction without doubt. Australia had to be built by somebody. New South Wales and Victoria were built by government, even to a large degree Brisbane, but you go to places like the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, entrepreneurs built those locations, and, they weren't built by government. So, we've got a wonderful country, and I think really anything that once you're going into private business, it could potentially be a member of Coraggio.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And specifically in the last sort of 10 years, obviously we've seen the market go up and down, economy go up and down. We've had the pandemic, which obviously hit a lot of businesses, small businesses in particular. How has Coraggio helped a lot of these businesses that were specifically affected during that time recover? I understand, and one of the things that you're very proud of is that none of your board members, you've never closed a business. None of your members has ever closed down because of Coraggio. Can you give me one or two specific businesses that you've helped during this period?
So yeah, I really believe, I'm 64 now, and I think over the 40 years I've been in business, I think private businesses probably get a bit of a wake-up call every 10 years. Years ago we had the global financial crisis, then we had the Asia crisis, then we had high interest rates, we had unemployment, we obviously had COVID, and I'm sure, William, in the next 10 years, we'll get whacked by something else, But at the same time, if you look at the last 30 years, we had post-World War II, between 1948 and now, we had a really stable global economic climate. We've got solid banks in this country. We had large growth in property prices, which I don't know whether over the next 30 years our kids will see that. I think we may be going into a different generation. When I was your age, we still had black and white TVs. So, life's changed today, and because we now have a mobile phone, and and now we've got AI and lots of other things coming. So I think the next 30 years are very exciting. But I think when they often say when a business gets hit with a problem, whatever that might be, a problem shared is a problem halved. And often, if you've got 12 people around a boardroom table, there's lots of experience there. So when businesses do run into a financial problem like COVID created, not every business was affected that dramatically, but at the same time with private owners, when things do happen, you can't just sit on your hands. You can't just put your head in the sand. Like we have a huge responsibility as private owners to our staff, to protect our staff, to support that staff that works for us, their families, and if we don't fix it, then nobody else will, So that's, as much as we're all very proud of our businesses, it's a huge responsibility to carry that staff with us, and it's up to us to sort it out. And as private owners, we don't always have the answers to every problem that gets presented in private business, as we saw in COVID. Sure, the government got involved, but I know there were lots of instances in Coraggio and in board meetings where lots of owners shared lots of strategies and ideas and experiences to save their businesses. And yes, to answer your question, in the 15 years Coraggio has existed, we've never had a business go into receivership. We don't run an insolvency division, which is not that easy when you've got so many businesses scaling, growing, expanding, diversifying, to have that sort of track record. Maybe we should just be thankful to our accounting firm, but to a large degree, yes, it's a great thing to have, and we're certainly very proud of that. And, we've had businesses scale from 40 million to 900 million, which is a wonderful track record. Sure, there's been some highs and lows in all that, but yes, as a general rule, we've never lost a business on our watch.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how were you able to help that business scale from 40 to 900 million?
Well, as I often say, it's all in the strategy. We often say to people, what is the plan? What does the next 5 years look like? And when they do work that out, then why do that? Why are we scaling a business? Why are we growing? Are we looking to keep? Are we looking to sell? Are we looking to obviously a reason, season, or a lifetime. We're in for 3 years, we're in for 10 years, we're in for 30 years. And if we're growing and scaling, what are we going to do with it then? Are we going to keep it for our family? We're going to give it to our kids? Or will we sell it, obviously, to some overseas buyer? These are all options that really need to be talked about when you're first starting a business, not when you sort of enter the business 10 years later, employing 100 people, So it's that strategy piece that's really, really important. It's almost like looking at the business in 5 years' time and working backwards from it.
How important is it to have that exit strategy figured out before you get into the business? Because I know a lot of business owners, particularly in Australia, they get into business out of necessity rather than strategy, because they can't find a job or because of, they got made redundant and, all those type of things. So in your mind, how important is it to get the exit strategy right from day one and work towards that exit strategy versus just starting and figuring it out later on?
I can honestly say, out of all the entrepreneurs that have been, and look, success is measured in lots of different ways, but to the people that I think you get into private business to grow something, to build wealth, or business usually starts with a passion, or an idea or a hobby, and it obviously grows into something. But it's a bit like buying a coffee shop. People buy a coffee shop and they say to them, well, why did you buy the coffee shop? To make coffee, rather than thinking about it and saying, well, I'm going to buy a coffee shop and then I'm going to end up having 5 of them and then I'm going to sell them and this is the reason I'm going to do this sort of stuff. Like anything, you do need to have that strategy piece. And I think it's the single biggest thing. Unfortunately, nobody ever teaches you strategy when you're setting up a private business. It is not taught at school.
Yeah.
It's not taught at university. Yeah. It's not taught in MBA programs. But it's in a Coraggio board, it is the first thing that gets talked about. Okay. It's the working out, and people often say it's the why. Why do you do what you do? And what we often find is that if we can work out that why, you actually have a light bulb moment. People actually, it's like they become happier because they know why they're doing what it creates purpose. The mission statement comes out, the vision comes out. It all seems to sort of come together when you work out the why.
So is that the reason why we see business owners burn out? Because they don't have a why, or they don't associate their business to a larger purpose? Is that why we see business owners burn out, or there's other reasons for that?
I don't think Australia's an easy country to make a net profit. I think it's not that hard to scale revenue, but what we often see, and we see a lot of it, is by the time you grow the revenue, get the premises, fit them out to a standard or to a health standard, employ the staff, pay the salaries as required in Australia, the taxes, the overhead, the running costs. The single biggest thing that's under fire at the moment is net profit. To get net profit out of a business, that is the return. And often what we see with lots of private owners is they are family people. There's only so many hours in a week. And what we're seeing a lot of these days is, people are working much longer hours, many more days of the week to try and get that, I suppose, those extra revenue into their business, but it's not necessarily transpiring into an extra net profit. And, often that can only be worked out with budgets or planning or sweet spots, because bigger is not necessarily always more profitable. So it's working that out and spending some time looking at your business rather than necessarily working in your business. A lot of people work in the business and they think, well, the more hours I do, the better return I'll get. And it leads to burnout and responsibility. And, there's lots of demands these days on running a private business. Though there's great success that comes with it. I think the days of 9 to 5, which wasn't that long ago, we went to work, the phone was there, we worked from 9 to 5, we went home. Well, I think the mobile phone and the laptop has blurred all that, right? And you would agree.
Yeah.
And, we all get lots of emails overnight, on Saturdays, on Sundays, while people are sitting at their kids' sport. And I think that can sometimes lead to burnout, and unfortunately, that's just life at the moment.
Yeah. So to that point, do you believe in work-life balance? I mean, I think, to what you said earlier, having the why, having a purpose drives the business. But then you also mentioned that a lot of these business owners are, family. They have families look after their parents, they look after their children and all those type of things. How important, or do you believe there is work-life balance? Is that a myth, or do you sincerely believe there is such a thing as work-life balance?
It's a great question, William. Look, I think if I talk to lots of private owners, and as I do, I think there is lots of sacrifice in running a private business. And the thing that usually the biggest sacrifices is usually family time, children, health, and friendships. Your mates, your really good friends that you like to spend time with. And I think they're all the sacrifices of a private business. And as people reflect on that, because there's only so many hours in a week, 7 times 24 hours gives you so many hours, and what you choose to work in those hours. People have big aspirations for their family, for their health, for their partners, and they have those for their business as well. Now, something in all that has to give. So the more effort you obviously put into one thing, the less effort you put into something else. So I think, I don't know, I haven't quite worked it out as a personal view, I'm still working on that. But I do know for the businesses that do grow and scale, it is hard to have a work-life balance. Yeah, something usually has to give. I think it's hard to be perfect at all 4.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And you mentioned health. This year's been a very interesting year for me personally. I've had a lot of friends and family go through a lot of health issues. And that's kind of given me a bit of a wake-up call when I'm running my own business, not to sacrifice things to an extent where it's affecting my own health. Because if I'm unhealthy, it's going to affect the business, it's going to affect my family, it's going to affect everyone that I love and care about. How important is it for a founder or an owner or CEO of a business to maintain their health? And you mentioned you're in your 60s, but you're very energetic and you're very, very healthy. What's something that you do to help maintain your sort of energy level and fitness and health?
That's a great question, William. Thank you. Look, I think often the single biggest thing that I hear from entrepreneurs, and I think I've learned, is you need time just to think, just to be. And I read a lot, but the single thing that I think, apart from walking and gym and swimming and all those things we talk about in terms of exercise, but just think time, just to reflect and think about. And I value that quiet time. I think it allows you to plan, reflect, arrange your diary as to, live the life that you want to live. And often, I look at people's businesses or people that are not well organised, or they lack a bit of that quiet time just to think about things. And if you talk to lots of leaders, whether they be in private business or in defence, and they often talk about that time just to reflect and be and think. And I think that's a really important part of a person's success or entrepreneurialism. I think sleep, all too often, sleep is a really important asset for private owners. You've got to get your sleep. And I've always been a person that the body needs to rebuild, and it's a really good way to keep stress down is to sleep and rest. The body needs to recover from that. And in sport, we obviously interview a lot of sports people at Coraggio, and they talk about that recovery time. The body needs time to recover. And I think the body is quite resilient to lots of things. And the final thing I'd say to you as well is be in the moment.
Be in the moment.
Because I think it's really important to be in the moment. You can't be sitting with your family and kids and wife or partner and enjoying dinner while being on your mobile phone. Like, if you're in the moment, you're in the moment. Enjoy the moment and make it the quality of time rather than the quantity of time. And I'm not suggesting you have to do 16-hour days, but you're better off coming to work or at home and being in the moment, doing what needs to be done, and trying to get the most use out of what is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think we as Australians, we live in the luckiest country in the world. We've got lots available to us. But I think, I wouldn't say it's a work-life balance, because a lot of people say it's just work, but I think it's how you spend your week, and it's the quality of the time in each of those things.
Yeah. So making your time count.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on sleep, and I know so many business owners that are burning a candle at both ends, and they're sleeping 3 hours a night, 4 hours a night, because there's certain deadlines, there's certain things they want to achieve, certain things they want to do. What do you say to those entrepreneurs? I mean, surely that's not sustainable over a long period of time, only getting away with 3-4 hours sleep every single night. At what stage do you think these business owners, particularly in the startup stage, they need to start prioritizing sleep over work?
Well, look, I think, we actually recently had a cardiologist as a guest speaker. And Andrew Sindoni is the leading cardiologist here in Sydney, and he was saying how the single biggest threat to health is stress. And I think stress is one of those things that leads to strokes and heart attacks and cancer, because it creates an imbalance in the body. So I would say to all those people that are burning the ends of a candle at both sides, that you've either got the wrong plan, you've either got the wrong people that you can't delegate to, and having great people in your business is really important to do that. You've either got the wrong model, because working on a business 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, for any amount of time is not going to lead to good health issues. And the body will react to that. You'll be quite sick out of it. Or, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I would think it can't be prolonged. And it will affect, you're not making smart decisions, because, the body hasn't had time to rest. And as lots of private owners say to me, the best decisions they make are usually in the shower in the morning, because they've got a clear mind,
Yes.
or if they're on holidays, or if they're on a plane between Sydney and Melbourne, because they've actually got quiet time to think, rather than sitting at their computer doing emails. Like, they can actually turn everything off and really just assess the situation and make great quality decisions.
So think time you mentioned here sounds like it's a very important part of being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, we're constantly, our time's demanded everywhere. Your staff wants your time, your customer wants your time, your family wants your time. How do you manufacture quiet time for yourself? There's distractions all the time. Your phone is a massive distraction. It doesn't matter where you go, you're always going to get distractions thrown in your face. What's the best way, in your opinion, for an entrepreneur to manufacture those quiet times? And what do you think is an appropriate quiet time? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a couple of hours, or what do you think?
So what I've learnt over the years is, what I define as successful entrepreneurs are early risers. And for some reason, 4:30 seems to resonate with a lot of them. So the alarms usually go at 4:30. They usually have a routine in the mornings. And for those people that are obviously have families, it's a great time, because usually their partner's asleep and the kids are asleep. So 4:30 is a really good time. You can get up, meditate, have a yoga class, go for a swim, go for a surf, go for a run, do some exercise, because it's just a quiet time. And usually between 4:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning is a great time to do that. And, you don't have to be going to bed too late. So I think a lot of very successful entrepreneurs use those mornings to their advantage, because usually the phone doesn't start ringing till probably 7:30, 8 o'clock, or emails don't start. But just talking about emails, the other thing I've learned from entrepreneurs is not being a slave to your email. People spend all day looking at their email. Smart entrepreneurs looking at their emails twice a day. First thing in the morning, last thing in the afternoon. They don't sit there looking at their screens all day long. Nobody's expecting a response with you that moment. But some people will just sit in front of their computer all day, rather than getting on to making a list of priorities, getting through those priorities, and then coming back to their email. So I think, and those things that I've learned are from talking to other entrepreneurs or private owners or books that I've read, and then taking those sorts of habits into my life.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because quite often when I'm checking my emails during the day, I might get an email with some negative news, and that just throws me off balance for the rest of the afternoon. And I'm always trying to play catch up in terms of productivity. So that's actually really good advice. Check it once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and then leave it alone.
So I would take it a step further, William, because great entrepreneurs usually look at emails once a day, which is first thing in the morning, because they don't want to get bad news at 5 o'clock in the afternoon about some transaction they might have not gone their way or gone, because they don't want to be going home with that sort of lingering around. Whereas if they look at their emails first thing in the morning, and there could be good news, bad news, whatever, at least they've got the whole day then to process that through. But there's lots of people that look at their emails at 6:30 at night, close the computer, then head home in that frame of mind, and they arrive home, wife, 4 kids, and suddenly you've got to be in a good mood. Well, who could be in a great mood after just getting some bad news half an hour ago,
That's fair.
On a transaction you spent the last month working on.
Yeah.
So I think changing your work habits is really, really important. Or not looking at your emails on the weekends. You're at Saturday sport with the family and suddenly you're looking at emails on your phone.
Yeah.
Look, that's my advice to you.
No, I think that's really sound advice. And I think, with technology these days, it's double-edged sword. It's great because you've got the convenience on the palm of your hand, but then again, you've got the potential distractions if you don't know how to use it properly.
Correct.
All right, Richard, I want to pivot our conversation a little bit, and then I want to talk a little bit more about yourself and sort of your history in business, just for people that don't know who Richard is, and people might be watching this podcast for the first time they heard about Richard, first time they heard about Coraggio. So I'm sort of interested to learn about how you got started in business and what made you take the leap, because it's not every day that people wake up and go, I want to be a business owner. I mean, maybe you did, but looking back at your career, like what got you started? Why did you get started?
Oh, it's funny, William. With a surname like Skarzynski, it's about as Australian as you can get. It's a good Aussie name.
Yeah.
I'm the son of immigrant parents that came from Poland after the war in 1948 and came to Australia. And years later, I was born, and I grew up in a suburb in Sydney called Strathfield, and went to an all-boys Catholic boys' school where, if you're good at football, suddenly you got great marks at school. And my mother had illusions of me playing the piano accordion, but that was never going to happen, unfortunately. So, though I did take up the guitar. And when I went to school, which is different to when you went to school, when you went to school, probably they had like a Moby disc set up where they played the DJ and played records.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas when I went to school at St. Pat's, we had the school rock band. And I was lucky enough to play in the school rock band because I played guitar. And so we used to play at the school dances, because in Strathfield there's 7 schools in the area. And I played in the school rock band. So that's how we grew up in those years, playing in a rock and roll band and playing lots of football and lots of sport, because St. Pat's certainly was a great school for footy and is very big in soccer today.
Yeah.
And it teaches you teamwork and protecting your friends and all that sort of stuff. But it was interesting, one night I went from being a musician to being a DJ, playing the turntables one night, only to realise that it was actually quite a lucrative occupation,
right?
Because you get paid for playing records, and usually in a fun environment, which is parties and lots of other functions. And so I started to work part-time as a DJ. And
this is what year is this?
Oh, William, this is thanks for highlighting that. This is, I don't know, probably when I was 18, so probably 30 years ago.
Okay.
And then as it worked out, suddenly I went playing discos at all the schools, and I thought it was lots of fun because my friends would come with me, and much to the concern of my mother, that wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, or bank manager, not some DJ in nightclubs. But then as things go on, you get on to playing in more places, and And if you're good at your craft, then they invite you to play other places. And suddenly I was DJing 5 nights a week and went from doing parties and school discos to working in nightclubs and whatever else. And then it was really exciting times, and I did my degree. And when I finished my degree, went to work for the ANZ Bank, which was...
What was your degree?
I did a degree in economics at the University of New South Wales, which was a great foundation of business, because obviously accounting and finance and everything else. And then later on went on to do a master's degree, an MBA at the University of New South Wales, which is fantastic as well. But none of them teach you to run a private business, like they give you all the theoretical side, which is wonderful, and we all need to have that. But, nobody ever teaches you to run a private business. And I decided when I was working for the ANZ Bank, I went on to their graduate program after uni, that with all these people running these private businesses, and so I thought when I was 23, I'd start a business with my friends. We started a little business, and we didn't even know what it was to sign a lease or create an invoice. Like, let me teach you these sorts of things,
What was the first business you started?
We used to hire speakers and lights, like for parties.
So audiovisual.
Audiovisual, yeah.
Okay.
Audiovisual, just hiring it all out to parties and stuff,
great.
or DJing at weddings or 21st, because we're already DJing. Lots of my friends wanted to do it, so we just started doing it for friends, and then we were hiring equipment, and then we had the hiring business just grew and grew and grew, and and before we knew it, we were working in lots of different places, and the business just grew. We took up some advertising in the Yellow Pages. Suddenly the phone rang. Was it a marketing plan? No, it wasn't. It was just a couple of young guys having a go. Like we were both single, or there was a few more of us at the time, and just having a lot of fun and just really enjoying life and not really knowing where the thing was going to go. I don't think we ever wrote a business plan. We didn't know what a business plan was. So as I said earlier, businesses start with a passion. And but then it grew and grew and grew and grew, and then we started getting into larger installations and contracting and installing the equipment, and started to build for corporate Australia, and it was a wonderful 25 years till I was 48. So you
had the business for 25 years?
25 years with a business partner.
Yeah.
And then at 48 we decided to part company, and then I swore never to come back to the industry. But we have, and we, outside of Coraggio, obviously we're involved in family businesses, which is great, which we thoroughly enjoy. And we've got great teams, and we're building in all those sorts of spaces, and whether it be in corporate, whether it be in education, whether it be in aged care, whether it be in special events. I'm not DJing anymore with that.
That's disappointing.
No, I have given that away. But I still have a love of music, and I certainly enjoy music. But we are certainly on the, and we went on to do lots of really interesting work in hospitality and in corporate, and obviously special events and, Olympics and all the things that, Australia went through, we were heavily involved with, and it was lots of fun. But we worked in government, we worked in defence, but it's all great when it works. Let me tell you, when it doesn't work, it can be very stressful, because you've got to get it up, and technology is one of those things that it seems to stop working just when you do need it to work.
Just like a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, absolutely, just like a Zoom meeting. So it's, so that's my heritage, and I'm still very fond of it. And as I said, still our families are involved with it today. And I think we'll always enjoy it. So it's, that's what we do, and that's been my learnings at outside of Coraggio.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you had a successful business for 25 years, and in the audio visual space. And how big did the company grow to? How many people did you employ? Can you tell us a few numbers?
Yeah, hundreds of people. We had offices all around Australia. We ended up having an office in Singapore, an office in Malaysia. We went and built things in China. We went and built things in London. All I can say is it was great having a great business partner, because I still had no idea what we were doing, and it was just a massive learning. But nobody ever taught us stuff, and I think it would have been great to have people around us that had been around private business, or a Coraggio board that you could sit with. You couldn't find the word coach or mentor in the yellow pages. Today, at least we have Google. We used to have the yellow pages. How do you look that up in the yellow pages, So you don't know what you don't know, and you don't, you try and get your best advice from accountants or lawyers or friends, but you try and read a lot of books, and all we had then was Encyclopedia Britannica, or Business News Weekly or something. You just don't know the information, And whereas today, we've got just such wonderful access to all this sort of stuff with podcasts and YouTube and coaching and mentoring and Coraggio advisory boards. I wish I'd been a Coraggio member at 23. I think I was 54 by the time I actually found out about Coraggio. So, there's a million mistakes there in the meantime, if not more, and stuff that you don't know, you just try and have a go. And I certainly made plenty of them along the way.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the importance of having a mentor, because I know I was very fortunate when I was very young. I met my mentor who taught me everything that I know about commercial real estate. And that really gave me a springboard to where I am right now. If I hadn't met him when I was 19, I don't believe I'll be having my own business right now. So when you were in that business for 25 years, you mentioned obviously there's very limited access to information, people, there's no internet back then, or maybe there was towards the end of that business cycle. Who are your mentors, or who did you look up to for business advice? Or, I know Kerry Packer was a very prominent businessman and still have his influences across Australia right now. Who would be your mentor? Who did you look up to when you were having your business?
In reflection, I think I didn't really have a person that I looked up to, but and I say this to a lot of people today, if you're going to dream, then dream big. Don't be scared to have a go. Don't be scared to have a big go, because you don't want to be in life looking back and regretting and say would have, should have, could have. It's better to have taken the journey. Like they often say about Ayers Rock, if you never go, you never know. It's much easier to look back in reflection and said, well, at least I gave it a go, because it's actually really amazing, William, what can be achieved. With if you do have a go, and just by taking that final step. I remember when we started in Sydney, we went to Melbourne, we went to Brisbane, we went to Perth, we went to Adelaide. We were building in Canberra, and then we started building overseas. It was just, you just got to have a go, and I think great businesses have been started on just having a go, and people supporting you and committing to you. And but it does take, it's funny how we come back to the word Coraggio. It does take courage, it's courageous. You've got to make those courageous decisions, and nothing ventured, nothing gained, and provided it's obviously but I think any successful entrepreneur business is a risk. It's a massive risk, and people say, you can measure it. I think there's a degree of luck in that, but luck comes. People often say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But, I think it's also who you surround yourself with is really, really important. And if you try and find great advisors, then, or the best that you can get, and be curious. I often say to people, just be curious. We were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen. I still am today. I think if there's one skill I've got better at is listening rather than talking.
Listen twice, speak once.
There you go. You've just answered your question. I think being curious in private business is so important. And I look at, today, all the things that I've learned from all the Coraggio members up and down the Eastern Seaboard. And it's just like learning every day of what they do, how they did it, what drives them, what they got wrong, what they got right. I just wish I could just bundle all that information to work back when I was 23, because you don't know what you don't know. So you just think, So I think being curious, and you often hear entrepreneurs talk about that, is a really important quality.
Yeah, I agree with that. And now I'm curious too now, because obviously you oversee hundreds and thousands of businesses. through Coraggio. I'm curious to see what are all these business owners saying about business right now in Australia, and what are they considering in terms of outlook for 2026? What's the business landscape going to be like for Australians, for private business owners for 2026? You've got your finger on the pulse. You're speaking to hundreds of people. You're probably the best person to answer this question.
Look, I think it depends on which lens you look at it from. I think if you want to look at it through the lens of what does the next 10 years look like in property, then my advice would be, we saw it in Melbourne, we saw it in Sydney, and we're going to see it in Brisbane. The Olympics are coming in 2032. The whole world wants to live in Australia. People never thought properties would double every 7 to 10 years. Well, guess what's happened over the last 50? Properties have doubled in the last 50 years, like a number of times.
Yeah.
You know, they just said the other day, house and land package in Sydney now is 1.6 million. People never dreamed that would be that price. They're saying, oh, well, a house and land package in Brisbane is $1 million. Well, I'm not a property expert, but I'm sure there's plenty of property experts that'll be saying that house and land package that's $1 million today will be $2 million in 10 years' time. So I think Australia has a fascination with property, and I think anybody that's made wealth in this country has been directly linked to property. So people that are in the property game, and I know you are, but there's lots of other people, I think property is a surefire thing. Banks lend to property people. The rates are not that expensive at 4.5%, 5%. They're certainly not 21%. And there's a very active rental market there at the moment as well. So my advice, summing it all up, is yes, I support it. I'm not a property expert. However, if you combine all the entrepreneurs I've spoken to and speaking to, property seems to be without doubt the single biggest thing to look at over the next 10 years. Interest rates are going to wallow around a bit, but they're in a safe number. First and foremost, I think it's a really safe investment. In terms of, secondly, we've got a very safe banking system. We've got 4 very strong banks that are keen to lend to private business or to business owners. So it's a good time to borrow money. A number of our members, have borrowed. They think of, well, it is what it is, but it's a very safe time to borrow money, and the banks are quite supportive. So I think people that are looking to use finance for property is a great thing. In terms of businesses, what we see is lots of businesses scaling. However, what is very hard is the net profit. What is it? What's the net profit that's left for the end of the day? And I think that's the single thing we see that's under fire nationally, delivering that net profit. So people are getting the gross revenues, they're getting the gross profits, but by the time they pay for everything else and their running costs, what's actually left over for their families is maybe not what the budget said. And I think that's probably the single thing to watch out for. Wages are on the increase, super's on the increase, property's on the increase, running a business is on the increase. So doing your budgets around those net profits is really important.
So going into 2026, property is a safe bet. Focusing on your bottom line is more important than anything else. How do you see AI play into this? I mean,
look, I don't know. I think it's my personal view there is, and I'm not a tech head, I think it took 10 years for the internet to be incorporated into private business. Did the internet lose jobs? There's probably some people that will lose their jobs, but I think, as everybody's saying, from the economist's point of view, other jobs will be created. Unemployment is still sitting in this country at, 3.5%?
It's very low.
Very low for a country. And in other places, it gets down. I think in Tamworth, it's 2%. So, there's very, very low unemployment rates. There's lots of jobs on offer. So I think, I don't know, I'm not the expert there. I think what I will say on the positive side, I think it'll deliver quite a number of billionaires over the next 10 years in this tech space. I think we'll all see that coming. But as to the ramifications on private business, and we're yet to be
Jury's still out.
Jury's still out.
Yeah. I want to touch on something you mentioned during the board meeting. You mentioned that there are over 300,000 small business or private businesses in Australia, and majority of them are owned by people over the age of 60. And I forgot what the stat is. Maybe you can tell me what the stats are. But at any given year, I think 10 or 20% of them want to sell or want to get out of the business. So what opportunities does that create for small business owners like myself or other members in the board? Is there an opportunity to capture some of that, or what are your views?
So, William, we are coming into a period in Australia that we've never seen in this country. So the numbers are, there are over 2 million private businesses in Australia right now. 1.2 million of them employ less than 4 people, but there are 300,000 businesses that employ between 4 people and 200 people.
Okay.
And then there's, I think, 120 odd thousand that employ 200 and over. Of that 300,000 businesses between 4 and 200, 20% of those 300,000, which is nearly 60,000 businesses, are owned by people 60 and over. That means over the next 10 years, in other words, the baby boomers. In other words, in the next 10 years, those 60,000 businesses, they're going to have to do something with. They're either going to keep them, bring their families into it to run them like their children, sell them, or hopefully not, turn the lights off. At the moment, there's about 2,000 businesses a year that buy and sell, that get transacted in that space, which means there's another 4,000 on top of that. So we're going to have to do something with. We've never seen that volume of businesses coming into the market or having to be thought about. So there's 60,000 businesses. So a lot of businesses won't be sold. A lot of businesses, the family doesn't want to take on. The kids don't want the business, and they're great businesses. So I think there is huge opportunity there for entrepreneurs that are in their 20s, 30s and 40s to look at these businesses, to invest in them, to take them over, to diversify, because there's 60,000 businesses. That's a lot of businesses doing all different things, and they're not necessarily being transacted or moved on because they're not profitable. It's just that the owners getting to an age where they better do something, because you can't be 100 running a business, right? It doesn't work. So, 60 to 70. And by that stage, I think owners are looking to maybe step back a little bit, not cut a 60-hour week. So they're looking at their businesses seriously. So I think there's a huge opportunity there for entrepreneurs coming through to look at these businesses and to diversify, invest in them, and because they're great businesses delivering great profits.
What businesses do you think are going to outperform, or industries do you believe are going to outperform the rest in the next sort of 3 to 5 years? What are the trends? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Well, that's a great question. Look, I think the businesses that, without getting too specific, I think if you manufacture and your product's highly regarded, and it was interesting. I was listening to a presentation by the CEO of Westpac the other day, and they talk about Australian businesses, and if their products stand up against the overseas products and they're Australian made and they're a quality product, then quality obviously covers over price. So I think if it's a business that's got some sorts of barriers to entry away from the competitors, I think any of that sort of thing that's maintains that will be very successful. I think if there's a business that has low barriers to entry, I think will probably be under scrutiny, under fire, be it from local businesses or overseas businesses. So I think the success, or having a specific niche in a market, like if you have a strong niche in a market and you're good at a particular market, I know certain people are really strong in certain sectors, whether they be in education, whether they be in aged care, whether they be in agriculture, whether they be in industrial. I think any of those people that have got specific expertise in an area, those businesses will always be highly regarded, highly specialist. They'll always get great returns. And I think they'll be able to navigate for the next 10 to 20 to 30 years.
So being a specialist, being good at it, rather than being a generalist.
Yeah, I think so. And having higher barriers to entry. You've got to have a business that's got great barriers to entry, so you can keep the competition away.
Yeah.
And the higher the barriers to entry, the better it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting because in my space, in the property buyers agency space, 5 to 10 years ago, no one would have considered using a buyer's agent. In the last 2 or 3 years, you've seen buyer's agents pop up everywhere. Taxi drivers now buyer's agents, hedgers now buyer's agents, teachers buyer's agents. But obviously, a lot of that is in the residential space. And what's really interesting is I think Aussie has just launched a buyer's agency division. So we're seeing some big players now getting that space. Fortunate for us, so we only specialize in commercial property. So there's only a handful of buyers agencies in the commercial property space. And we've tried to get into a much niche market in the commercial property space by just focusing on value-add opportunities. And thankfully, I don't believe we have any competition in that particular niche in the commercial property space. But I think sooner or later, some of these bigger names, maybe the LJ Hookers of the world or the Ray White of the world, might start coming into that space. Do you have any advice specifically for me, someone in that particular space, to set our business apart from the rest and potentially reduce the competition?
I often think of your business. There's a gentleman that I know that originally went from being a hotelier to being a hotel broker, like a pub broker, right? Mm-hmm. And traditionally there were lots of bigger companies around pub broking, and what he developed was a company called HTL Property Group. The managing director's name's Andrew Jolliffe, and I've seen that business just rise over the last 10 years. And my advice to you would be the same. Try and find what the next 10 years looks like. It's interesting that I think people are getting quite used to the concept of buyer's agents. Mm-hmm. I was talking to some owners and members of ours in Brisbane the other day, and they have a team of 10 buyer's agents now working for them. Mm-hmm. So as the inquiries come in, it used to be a real estate agency. Now there's actually, the real estate agency is great, but what's developed larger is the buyer's agencies become larger. So there's a trend there. Mm-hmm. What Andrew was able to do in his hotel broking business is surround himself with a great team of experts. So they really became the boutique, I would say, pub broking business in Australia. And even though the other larger brands started to come into the play, then they were able to deliver a great result because of the team that they had there, the experts they had there.
And they just do pubs?
They just do pubs.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and they do them New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria. Now they've gone into accommodation hotels as well as hospitality. But they are considered to be, well, they're the market leader that any of the hotels that are coming up for sale will always invite them for a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think they've done particularly well over that. So I would say the same advice to you. You want to develop yourself, have a great team of experts in your industry to a large degree, and then really market that way as you're the market leader in that space. And that's where you'll obviously be able to defend your position because of the quality of your team, which is not too dissimilar, William. You know, Coraggio is only as good as firstly, it's the quality of its members, and number two, the quality of its chairs. And, you know, we work really hard to have a great cohort of chairs, both male and female, you know, and to be a chair at Coraggio, you must have come from a private business background. You know, we don't have coaches or mentors, as much as I think there's a place for them. You know, our chair people are owners of people that have scaled private businesses. And I think some advice would go to you in that commercial sector is build a wonderful team of Australian experts in that commercial sector.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's your team that's going to win.
The quality of your team.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got, as you've built your expertise over the last 10 years, then you want to have great people around you. And I think that will make the difference or create a team to your competition.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Good advice. Well, I've just got a few more questions before we wrap up. More questions around Coraggio specifically. So obviously, I've been a member of Coraggio for about six months now, I think. And every time I come, obviously only come on a monthly basis, but every time I come, I walk away with one piece of advice that I can implement in my business that just changes the direction of my business. Or I develop one relationship that's going to help me, get my business to the next level. My question is like to people out there that were in a position like mine, that's out on their own, trying to figure things out. Maybe they've been in business for a couple of years and they hit a bit of a brick wall. What can they expect coming to Coraggio? What can they expect to achieve in the first month, 2 months, or 3 months by becoming a member of Coraggio?
It's a great question, William. They often talk about what is the best business book that's ever been written. And I'd have to say, and I'm an avid reader, I'm a curious reader, and out of all the books I've ever read, the single standout book for me is Scaling Up. Scaling Up. It's a book written by Vern Harnish, and it talks about 4 pillars. And business is really based on these 4 things: strategy, execution, people, and cash. And I think when people first come to Coraggio, it's really, they often sit back and they hear people's strategies. This is my strategy, this is my strategy. And that, by them hearing other people talk about their strategies, it sort of starts to change the way you think about your business, as to, will I be doing this in 10 years' time? How big do I want it to be? Why should it be that big? And you sort of start to formulate those ideas because you hear it from other people that you respect or in your board, and it's firsthand. So strategy is a really important piece. The second piece that owners are not good at is execution. They tend to sit on their hands. They just, well, we really need you to do this, and this, and this, and suddenly 4 months has gone past and you've just started smiling. So there you go, right? Execution. You got to get, and I say it all the time, you got to get shit done. You just got to get on with it and do stuff. We're going to do it. You can't be half pregnant in business. You're either going to have a go or you're not, right? So execution is, let's do it. Third thing, you've got to have great people. And I can't advocate that enough. It's the single biggest thing that I've learned in all my businesses about finding great people. You've got to try and find, people say, I can't find them. Well, you just got to keep looking for them. You just got to keep looking till you find those great people. And then you've got to create an environment for them and you've got to keep them. Because to scale businesses, you need people. The thing will not grow by itself. So people is really important, third thing. And the final thing is cash. You've got to be able to fund these businesses. And often the single biggest thing why businesses fail is they run out of cash. They just keep burning it. So cash is a really important thing, and having enough of it around to support you, to support your growth, supports you. So if you look at your business from that point of view, strategy, execution, people, and cash, I guarantee you, hand on the heart, you'll have a great business. So I think, Coraggio does emphasize that. That is our framework. That's in our syllabus. It's in our basis. And it's something the chairs all believe in. Not because it's a theoretical model, it's just, it relates so well to Australian private business. So that's what I think members will learn from Coraggio.
Strategy, execution, people, and cash. Okay, so you provide the cash.
We don't provide the cash, but we try and give you the advice around to have enough of it around to make sure that, people say, oh, but, I'm invoicing $1 million a month, $12 million a year, and do you think I need an overdraft? And I think, well, of course you need an overdraft. Like the business is running. So, but nobody ever teaches you about those metrics, of how much capital you actually need. Anyway.
No, that's great. That's great. So, so just in closing, just one final question. So, what keeps you going, Richard, after all these years in business? What keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? What advice you can share with new entrepreneurs?
It just, I would say this. I think as I reflect on my, I suppose, entrepreneurial career, I just think I live a really blessed life, that I'm able to serve, and I find myself in this role of being able to help while learning at the same time. I think I'm being curious. You ask lots of questions, and as the years go on, when it gets to Christmas time and you reflect back on the year, and you think, well, if I'm able to help somebody with some advice or an introduction or an opportunity, then it's been a life well lived. So I think, the role of CEO of Coraggio has a lot of purpose to it. Every day is just a different day. My mother was a nurse when she was younger, and I think a lot of her is in me. She passed away when I was only 23. And I, obviously lived with that ever since. But the being able to serve, I think being able to serve and support people in private business and then learn from them at the same time is a fascinating role. And I think if you can enjoy and truly love what you do, then it's not really like work to me. I just, they say if you can do the things you love to do that you wouldn't get paid for, then this is what I'd be doing. And I want to say, we've got a wonderful shareholder base that created this thing 15 years ago. They've invested lots and lots of money. They've never asked for it back. They don't want an interest. They don't want a dividend, which I found pretty unique, that they would invest all the money that they have to set this up. And I think it's wonderful to have that shareholder base. To the chairs that come and chair our boards, they certainly do a great job, and they worry. And they certainly don't do it to be millionaires. They do it because they want to give back and support. And I think to our staff, we've got this really hardworking full-time staff that are really motivated and excited by what we do, and that have enabled us to grow the business. In 26, we're going to Western Sydney, which is really exciting, going to Parramatta, and we're really excited about being there. And then we're also opening in South Australia in 26. And the big news is in 27, we're going to Auckland and to Singapore.
Oh, wonderful.
And which we're really excited about, and we've got a lot of support for. So the next couple of years are really exciting, and our membership continues to grow, which is wonderful. And people sort of join Coraggio and then they stay, which is even nicer. And we're fortunate to say the business is 15 years old, and we've got members that have been members for 10 years or plus. So, and their businesses continue to grow, and we've had a great speaker cohort this year. We always get guest speakers for our board days. And as we reflect on 25 and coming to 26, then it's lots of fun.
Wonderful. Well, Richard, thank you so much for your time. It's been a wonderful chat. And if people want to get in touch, where's the best place to go?
Just go to the website, Coraggio, and we'd certainly love to talk to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, William. Cheers.